All right, so we're going to kind of finally look at images and how do we bring images into our canvas and manipulate them. And that's what's really going to make a game or a graphical user interface look unique and dynamic. And so what we need to think about are kind of two different things as we're looking at an image. So we have what's called the source image, and that's going to be kind of what it sounds like. It's the original image, the things that are coming to, and what we have is on the canvas, we can specify basically whatever part of the image we want to draw. So we can scale it, we can look at a piece of it, we can make it bigger, smaller, we can manipulate on the canvas, but the source image is always going to be our source image. So let's look at an example. So this example, when we run it, what we'll see is we get, hopefully, a cat. And so what we have is we have an image that we've grabbed, and the place that we've grabbed it is here. So this link, if I was to look at it, now in Code Sculptor, we need a direct URL to make this work. So when I pull this in, let me just go to the source image. It needs to end with JPEG. Okay, so that will give us our source size. Now, the cat that I drew was obviously much smaller than this one, but proportionally looked the same. The other thing we're going to need to know is how big this thing is. So what is the source dimensions? A couple ways to do it. One is you can inspect and you can look at the images. So you can see here that it looks like 400 by 439 is the padding. My image source, as I look through it, are going to be right up here. So these are the pixel dimensions, so the width and the height, 1268 and 1392. So when we look at our Code Sculptor, right, we're going to see some of that stuff there. So those values, the 1268 and 1392, come through as our source width. Now, the image information that we pulled from, all right, is we're going to always basically say the center of it. For this case, the center of it is going to be the center of our image. Okay, so that's going to be the middle, and that's going to be our width and our height. Now, to draw it, what we're going to do is we're going to basically take the image URL, so that's this piece here. We're going to take the X coordinate, the Y coordinate. We're going to tell it where to draw it, and we're going to tell it how big to draw it. Okay, so the draw image size is 200, 200. And so that's where, and the draw position is in the middle. So when we run it, okay, it shows up in the middle, it's 200 by 200. If I was to change one of these, so maybe the draw image size is now 300, what we'll see is it's stretched it out, right? We've lost our aspect ratio. We can make it smaller, so I could do 50 by 50, and we get things scaled down. Now we can see, right, there's a small cat. It doesn't look like it's really different in terms of the source because our source image is roughly square. What we should probably do if we were to wanted to make this work appropriately is have some scale factor. So if we wanted it to look like, let's say the scale is 0.5. What we do is we would just take our width times scale, and we take our height times scale. And now when we run it, we should get something that's going to be proportionately the same. So 0.5 was too big, and we change it here to be 0.25. And then that's going to look correct. So we have the idea of those similar rectangles. It's going to show up, and we're not going to get any distortion within our image. All right, so that's the first part. The second part we can look at is drawing a portion of the image. So I had mentioned before that we have this idea of a source image and then the canvas where we can draw however we want. So let's say that we're trying to just capture kind of this upper corner of our image. We don't want to look at the rest of it. We just want to focus on that piece. So if we were to look at that, this right now is set to the center of the image and the full image height. So if I wanted to get that upper corner, maybe I want to look at the width and the height, that quarter piece. And then if I do just half of it, I'm looking at that piece, that upper box. Now when I run it, you can see that I've basically cropped the image to be that upper corner. So it's looking again at that center source, and then it's going out half and down half. And if we made it smaller, right? We can mess around with it and see what happens. If I want to do a fourth and a fourth, right? Now I'm like really zoomed in on that eyeball. One thing to note is if this source image center, if one of these rectangles, let's say that for the source center, you set the center point here, but you specify the width and the height to be too big, so it would go off of your image. That would be an error. And so to not crash your program, so let's say that I try to draw the whole thing, but I don't have the center point. What we should see is that our image just doesn't show up. So we just get this black screen. So if you get a black screen and you're not throwing an error, you need to check your dimensions to make sure that you actually have the right dimensions. Otherwise, you might have issues with it, with your sizing. So let's just put it back to where we had it, divided by 2. Oops. Divided by 2. Divided by 2. All right. So we have an image. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So let's see. I'm going to make it 0.1. How does that look? That looks better. One thing that's happening behind the scenes here that we haven't done yet is we actually have some key handlers. So I have a key down and a key up. And the key down is actually going to, so what this will say is that when a key is pressed, it will ask the question, is it the down arrow, the up arrow, left, right, Z, X? And what will happen is it will move the draw position. So it will add 20, subtract 20, and move it left and right. So basically, when I hit the arrow keys, you can see that I have a positional update. I can move things around with the keys. So I start to get a kind of a dynamic piece. We also had stuff in there of zooming. Okay, so that's basically taking this scale factor and multiplying it by a half. So I have Z and X. So I have Z goes in, X goes out, and I can really start to manipulate an image, right? So I could really look at that creepy eyeball by manipulating the image. Okay. One thing to note is, like, if you move your position off the screen, it just goes away. So you have to be a little bit careful with how things work on that piece. So in a second, we'll take a look at what's called a tiled image and see how those can be used to create things that start to look more like games.